Hi, this is Cheryl McQueen, designer with Bello's Designs. This video tutorial was so much fun to make. I have used the gorgeous Lavinia Scene Scapes called Moonlight Glow and featured 3 beautiful witches and fun cats in a scene with reflections. I decided not to cut down the background card and framed it in an 8 by 8 inch frame to display. But you can create a card if you like. I hope that you enjoy following along with this tutorial. So let's go ahead and take a look at the supplies that I'll be using today. So we will start out with the Scene Scapes by Lavinia, which is called Moonlight Glow. This is a 6 inch by 6 inch card, so it is large. If you decide you wanted to make it into a card, you can always cut it down a little bit. But like I said, I decided I wanted to make a picture frame to display with my Halloween decorations. We will then cut a frame, a little white frame. So that's just a piece of cardstock that I've cut to be 6.5 inches by 6.5 inches. And then I took a purple piece of cardstock and I cut that to be 8 inches by 8 inches so that it fits into my frame as kind of a mat. For the stamps that we're going to use today, we will start out with the Lavinia Coven of the Blue Moon, and this one is LAV 912. Then we will use the Lavinia Spanish Moss. This one is LAV 505. We're going to use 2 of the cats, the little minis. We're going to be using Jinx, which is LAV 917, and Ruin, which is LAV 915. And then I decided instead of doing bats that this time I wanted to go ahead and just use birds. So I did the Lavinia birds, which is LAV 097. We will be doing our stamping all with the VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. And we will go ahead and use the stamping platform, and I have put a sticky grid down there so I don't have to use magnets. Magic is actually what comes in with the witches. But anyway, then we will go ahead and have on hand a piece of acetate film. Just a little piece of some kind of plastic. This is how we will create our reflections. I'm going to create a little bit of mist just around their feet, and I did that with pan pastels, and this one is titanium white. You'll need to have a little cotton swab on hand to be able to put the mist on, or a very light brush of some kind. We'll also want to have a hairspray or a fixative spray of some kind. I just used a hairspray. That will help keep the mist from brushing off or rubbing off. That just kind of seals everything at the end. I just put my picture together with the adhesive running tape here, but you can also use a paper glue to do that. All right. The only other thing I think that you might want to have on hand is a piece of either the sticky notepad paper that's sticky all over, or a piece of the Lavinia masking sheets, or just something that's sticky, because what we want to do is when we are going to create our cat here behind the second witch, we want the cat to look like it's behind the witch. So this will help us to mask that off. All right, so let's get started working on this fun project. To start our project, we're going to grab our Scene Scapes. These packages come with 4 sheets in a package, so you can do multiple different scenes with these. So we will take our stamping platform and take the Scene Scape piece and just go ahead and lay it on there. And then we're going to want to start out with inking and stamping our witches. So you'll want to lay them out in a manner that will allow you to have plenty of room for putting your cats in. So what I did, I actually liked the spacing that they have on this sheet of acetate that comes with it. So I'm just going to line my witches up about where I would like for them to be, walking across the shoreline there. And then I'm just going to take each witch and slide her underneath that so that I've got her positioned where I want her to be. And then we will move on to the next one. And then finally our third witch. And that's just so that I can get a good positioning, since I like the way these are. Now obviously you can move your witches around however you like, but I just really liked the spacing that they already had. So I'm going to get them laid down there, and like I said, you just want them to be on the edge of the shore. I think that's about where I would like for them to be. I'm going to make sure I've got plenty of room for the kitty cats. And then I'm just going to close that down and get that stuck on my door of my stamping platform. I'm going to go ahead and set my picture aside here. I don't want to knock that off onto the floor. And then we will take our ink. And normally I usually only like to ink things one at a time, but because these witches need to be kind of in a set, I decided it was just easier to just go ahead and stamp them all up at one time, ink them up at one time, and then I could stamp them all down at one time. Now I love having them on this stamping platform, because if I need to do a second coating, it's really easy to do that and keep them lined up. This is a new ink pad, luckily, so hopefully I don't need to re-ink them up. Now this is a slick cardstock, so I like to hold it down just a little bit longer than I might on a regular piece of the Lavinia Smooth and Supreme, the multifarious cardstock, because it takes a little bit more for it to absorb into the slick coated cardstock. So just press down and make sure you get a nice, good, solid touching of all surfaces. And let's see what we got. That looks pretty good. I have a few little spots that look a little light for me. So I am going to go ahead and just re-ink them a little bit. Get that good dark, 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 crisp image. All right, so now we've got that really nice image, and I actually ended up getting that witch a little bit higher than I wanted to, but that's okay. We can still work with that. Now, what we want to do next is keep our stamps on our stamping platform, because now we're going to go ahead and take our piece of acetate and we're going to lay that over. Now, your ink will probably take a little bit longer to dry as well, so if you want to take a heat tool and just gently go over it, and that will maybe help it to dry just a little bit and not smear on the back of your piece of acetate. All right. Now, what I am going to do, the nice thing about when you make a little boo-boo is there are usually ways that you can go ahead and fix them. So with this witch, she's a little too high. I did not pay much attention to that. So I'm just going to take a fine tip black pen, and I'm just going to kind of fill in with that pen just a little bit of black to bring her up where she's standing on the ground. Add a few little grasses in there. So most of the time you can fix when you have little tiny boo-boos like that. And I should have paid a little more attention, but as you can see with that small, quick, simple little fix, you can't even tell that I got her just a little bit too high. All right, so now we've got our witches here, and we want to go ahead and re-stamp the witches, but I'm going to do it kind of lightly, not as solid as I was doing before. So let's just say I'm just going to dab lightly a time or two. And it's kind of hard to see, but they're not going to be solidly filled in. They may have some empty blank spaces there. And that's okay, because you just want to get a light one, because the reflection needs to be a slightly lighter color than what your original image is. So now I'm going to take my piece of acetate, and I'm just going to lay it over the surface here. And if you want to make sure that you're getting a good good image, and without it popping up and moving around, you can put just a little piece of tape down. So now I've got my acetate, as you can see, over the top of the witches. And I'm going to get the ink onto the acetate. Okay, and then I can look at it and see what my images look like. And if I want a little bit more ink, I can just lightly touch down again. So now I take this piece of acetate, and you can kind of see it's got a lighter coating on it, and that's what we want. We're going to take this and flip it over so that it's face down, and I'm going to line this up at the bottom of my witches so that we get the reflection of them in the water. Now I'm just going to go back in and lightly rub just in the water part to get that reflection to show up. Like I said, we don't want this to be really super dark. Now I'm going to try and hold it in place, so if I need to lay it back down, I can. And I'm just going to lift that up. And those look pretty good. I am going to go ahead and get a little bit more on this witch. And a little bit more on that one. And when we lift it up, you can see that we've got the reflections there. Now, with this, the great thing, the easiest thing to do is to clean it up with a little bit of baby wipe. So just lay that down somewhere, wipe it up, and then that will dry pretty quickly, so that when we move on to our cats, this piece will be ready to use a second time. All right, so now we can take our witches off. I am going to go ahead and just wipe them quickly off so that we don't stick our elbow or our hand down on top of them and get ink all over us. So we can remove our witches from the stamping platform. And we're going to move on to, I think this one is, let's look and see which one. We're going to start out with Jinx. Jinx is the one that is facing to the left. And we're just going to have Jinx following behind the first witch. So I'm going to place my Jinx just down there on the shoreline. next to that very first witch. And with that, we'll just do the same process all over again. We will stamp up him. I'm going to do that off screen. He doesn't take a whole lot of ink. Get a nice, good, crisp, solid image of him. There we go. All right, now let's go ahead and repeat the exact same process. We're leaving him onto our screen, to the lid of our stamping platform. We're going to take that piece of the acetate, just lay it over, make sure it's all dry now, lay it over the top. Ink him up just lightly, just a little tap. And again, we're just pressing him down onto that piece of acetate. Remove it. Match the feet up. Gently tap. And again, you're not looking for a nice crisp image. You're just looking for a light reflection. And there we go. All right, so now we will move on to doing Ruin. And I'm going to show you how to make it so that it looks like he is standing behind the second witch. Now the way that we're going to make him look like he is behind the second witch is I actually took my witch and stamped her onto this piece of, this is actually a post-it note that's sticky all over. You can use masking sheet, or you might even be able to just use a piece of the Sweet Poppy masking tape, because this is just a small edge. So what I did was just cut out this little area of her skirt so that I could place that over her to mask her out, because what I want it to be is look like when we stamp Ruin down that he's actually kind of standing a little bit behind her. We don't want him to be completely showing. So it kind of to me looks like he's like looking at the third witch going, okay, are you coming? So we'll put him right there behind her. So when you get him lined up where you want, and you can actually bring him down just a tiny little bit so that he's on the shoreline. And we're going to, once again, for the third time, we're going to repeat that process where we pick him up, ink him up, and stamp him. Nice, good, solid, thick image for the first print. If you want him standing in front of her, then you don't have to do the mask part of it, but I kind of like the way it looks with that he is standing behind her. Okay, so I've got him down, and I can pull this mask off, and so now it looks like he is standing behind her. I'll see if I can kind of zoom in on that. So what you would see if you did this in front, you might just get a little bit of an outline onto the top of her, so it looks like he's in front. Okay, so I've left him once again on my thing, and now I just took another little piece and cut to fit my reflection, because we do not want his entire reflection, because since he's behind her, his entire reflection won't show. So I've cut this little piece, and now I'm placing that over the witch reflection. Grab my piece of acetate, wipe off the previous cat. I may actually move down just a little bit further so that I won't get the wet edge. So off camera, or I guess I can swing it around so you can see. But once again, very lightly, he's just right there. I'm just going to tap him just a couple of times. I don't want to get him real super duper thick, so that we can get a good reflection. Press it down on the acetate. Pick up our piece of acetate and make our reflection. And as I said, he's going to go over that piece of masking so that we don't have his full reflection showing. So we just do that down. And now we've got all of our reflections. Simple process. It took me a while to learn how to do that, but once I learned it, it was like, oh, this is not too hard to do. Okay, so now we're going to move on and put in our Spanish moss. So I'm using actually both pieces of the Spanish moss. There's a bigger piece, and then there's a little bit skinnier piece. So I'm going to start out, and I actually may go ahead and take, let's see if I've got a little piece of scrap paper here, so that I don't get my stamping platform all messed up with ink. I'll move this down just a hair so that we could work on this top part. So I'm going to take my piece of Spanish moss and have it kind of go over the edge just a little bit. And then I'm going to finish it out. So I'll kind of show you here. But I'm going to then just go in and stamp all the Spanish moss. I'll probably speed up the video here just a little bit so you don't have to watch me stamping them all. But you can kind of get the idea of how this is going to look. Okay, so now we've got our moss, Spanish moss, all in there, and we're ready to go ahead and put our birds kind of coming in across the moon. So just place those right there where they're coming across the moon. That gives it a little bit of dimension there. And ink up our birds. And there we go. So with this part, we are now finished with the stamping part, so we can go ahead and remove our piece of art card that we have stamped everything on and move on to putting the mist around the base of the witch's dresses and right there at the edge of the water. So let's take our pan pastel, and then let me find my little cotton swab here. And like I said, if you want to use a fine brush instead of a cotton swab, you can do that as well. I just feel like I've got a little bit more control when I use a cotton swab. So I'm going to take the lid off, and mine is still very, very full. It's the great thing about pan pastels is you just don't need a whole lot to get the effect that you want. So I'm going to take the cotton swab, just barely dab it in there, and then I'm just going to start creating the mist along the edge of the shoreline. You can have it curl up a little bit. You can make your mist go as high or just keep it down at the ground if you like, whatever feels the right way to you. Got a little piece there. We'll just create that into a part of the mist around the cat. All right. Now, I sometimes will go ahead and just add a tiny little bit to look like there's some mist coming up off the water as well. And this is a little bit less solid than at the base of their feet, but it just adds just a little bit. You could even go a little bit further and add some into the sky. I kind of think I'm just going to leave it more at their feet. You can have some of it swirl up just a little bit higher in some lower places. All right, I think I'm pretty pleased with the way my mist looks. Now, one of the things that you will need to do when you use the pan pastels, at least for me, I like to do this, is you'll need to kind of finish it off a little bit with some either adhesive fixative or hairspray. I find that hairspray works just as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of step off camera here real quickly and lightly spray my card so that the mist won't rub off while I'm finishing putting the card together. So bear with me for a minute and I'll be right back. Okay, so I got my hairspray on there. Now, one little hint that you might want to do is hold your card and your can of hairspray a pretty good distance apart. I like to go probably a good 12 to 18 inches because I don't want to get it too thick. So when I'm spraying it on there, I just hold it way far away, do a mist and a mist, just 2 or 3 little squirts like that. Don't do it thick and solid. You just kind of want to get a light little mist to go on there, and then that will keep your mist and your pan pastel from coming off. Okay, so now we can actually go ahead and start putting the piece together. So let's grab our running tape, or if you prefer glue, you can do that as well, and the white piece of cardstock. And as I said, this one is cut to 6.5 inches by 6.5 inches. So when we mount it on there, we'll have a nice, pretty good 1/4 inch frame around. So I'll turn that upside down and get my adhesive on there. Now, if you're making a card, you may want to make your frame a little bit smaller. It makes it on how your dimensions are for your particular project. But since I'm going to frame this in a frame, then I want to have a nice large white frame around. Okay, and now we can take our 8-inch by 8-inch piece and mount that as well. Now I'm going to go back here and fix the light because it's just a little too bright, so you can see how well it matches out. The colors with the bright lights on just kind of make the colors not show true to form. So the shifting light can change the way things look. So we have got this piece now that we're going to center in the middle. Make sure I'm getting it in the right place to be centered. All right, and so now this piece is ready for me to put in a frame. And this, you can see, is the one that I did previously. Thank you so much for watching my video tutorial today. I can't wait to put this framed picture out with all of my Halloween decorations. I think it's just going to look really great. And this is a quick and fun way to use the witches and the cats with the No Fuss Scenescapes background. You can always create your own shoreline background and create the reflections, but this stunning background cardstock makes it a simple project to complete. I hope you will give it a try. Be sure to check out more tutorials on the design team page at delbellosdesigns.com. Have a great day.